On this episode of Healthcare Heartbeat, a podcast produced by Avant Healthcare Professionals, I'm joined by Bonnie Barnes, co-founder of the Daisy Foundation. We're talking all about the impact of recognition and gratitude. We're going to be looking back at 25 years of Daisy and finally looking forward at the new initiatives that are frankly pretty exciting coming from the Daisy Foundation.
You are listening to Healthcare Heartbeat, brought to you by Avant Healthcare Professionals.
I am thrilled and honored to have today's guest on the show, Bonnie Barnes, co-founder of the Daisy Foundation. Bonnie, welcome to Healthcare Heartbeat.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here with all of you at Avant Healthcare Professionals and truly grateful for all the time that you're dedicating with this podcast and one prior to this to talking about meaningful recognition and the Daisy Foundation's work. So thank you for including us in this conversation.
I think it's an integral aspect of what we do and the work that anyone does with nurses in the medical field for sure. And I'm super excited to get into a whole bunch of things as it relates to Daisy and recognition. I want to remind everyone just real quick, we did a previous episode about Daisy. So if you'd like to actually hear from one of our very own Daisy Award winners, I highly recommend you go back and check out that episode in our feed. But let's pretend like you didn't tune into that episode just a little bit. Bonnie, talk a little bit about the Daisy Foundation. What is it?
I love that you described this as recognition being integral in nursing and healthcare because 25 years ago, when our Patrick died of complications of the autoimmune disease, ITP, it was not only not integral, it was not anywhere. The concept of saying thank you to nurses by patients and families in a structured way, as the Daisy Award is, just didn't exist. But Patrick was in the hospital for 8 weeks at the end of 1999, and we as a family were with him day and night, and honestly, we were incredibly impressed by the clinical excellence of his nurses, but we were blown away by the way his nurses delivered their care. The way they talked to Patrick, the way they sat with him, even when he was totally sedated on a ventilator, the way they communicated with him, the way they touched him, how they worked with us as a family to try to make sure we had all the information we needed, and their overall compassion to us as a family, well, just touched our hearts. And we realized when Patrick died, we were filled with gratitude. And very simply, we wanted to say thank you to nurses for what nurses do every day that makes such a difference in our experiences when we're in their hands. That's what Daisy is all about.
I mean, so the Daisy is celebrating, you mentioned it, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it later in the episode, but celebrating 25 years. And it has certainly grown over that time in a number of ways. But why do you think that is?
Well, part of that is because we've had an amazing amount of persistence. In the early years, this concept of a structured recognition program that, by the way, my husband Mark and I, when we started this, thought if we could say thank you to nurses in 5 or maybe 10 hospitals around the United States, we would feel better after Patrick died, and we'd go back to doing what we were doing before he died. But as we traveled from hospital to hospital in the early years when it was just in hospitals, and we saw the impact that recognition was having, and especially the feedback that nurses were receiving from their patients about their care that was having on them, well, it just became our life's work. And we needed to make sure that this work sustained well beyond our original thought of 5 or 10 hospitals. I think the reason it has grown as it has is because while nurses will never say they need or even want recognition, the feedback they get, those beautiful, thoughtful, heartfelt, emotional nominations describing exactly what a nurse has done for a patient or family member, well, those nominations tie the nurses back to their purpose, and they mean the world to the nurses who receive them. And as a result, the impact of this program has just become contagious, if you will. It's widespread.
I know it's something that, you don't talk a lot about, but that you have yourself personally a kind of this background in advertising and marketing. And when I think you talk about nurse care, I almost liken it metaphorically to like branding and customer service, right? Good and highly effective branding and highly effective customer service is when it's done at all levels. And I think the application here is the same with medical care. The nurse is the person who, more often than not, is the one that's having the most interaction with the patient. The most, they're the ones that they're seeing in the morning, in some cases all through the night. They're that first line of care. And the recognition of, I don't want to say their sacrifice, but I think in the years and years that we've been around Avant Healthcare Professionals, we also know that nursing is very much a selfless craft. And I love that Daisy takes a moment out of the stressful days, out of their impactful work, and shines the spotlight on them.
Yes. One of the things that we saw very early on was that healthcare has a great affinity for figuring out when things go wrong. And the focus is always on what's wrong. What's wrong with this monitor? What's wrong with the patient? What's wrong with the system? What's wrong with the parking? I mean, it's always what's wrong. But what Daisy does is allow a healthcare organization to focus on what's right and to really think about the positive things that are going on in healthcare every day. And they're rampant. There are wonderful things going on all the time in healthcare, and especially at the hands of nurses. And that's what we want to shine a light on, as you say.
Yeah, I love that because you're right. I think in a hospital setting, and by extension, most business settings, yes, you're looking at what's wrong.
Yeah.
And we don't always spend enough time on the what's right. And I think that what the Daisy Foundation is done is, and why a big reason why it's grown is because it's probably been this aha, if you will, for when you first came to these hospitals, where it's like, oh yeah, like, why aren't we stopping and doing this, and how can we do this? This is an important thing to be doing. And sometimes the absolute best ideas are the simplest. And that's certainly not to say that you have a simple program, but it is to say that at its core, I really feel like it's an essential um, thing to be recognizing nurses and the great, great work they do with their patients.
We really did have a simple idea here. Our simple idea was to give patients and families and coworkers an easy way to say thank you to nurses for their extraordinary compassionate care, just like we needed to say thank you. But over the years, nurses have gotten a hold of this program and brought their incredible creativity and innovation and shown us what they needed to make meaningful recognition truly meaningful. And Mark and I and our whole Daisy team now, we're just about going around the country and now around the world and collecting the ideas of what nurses have brought to this program and spreading the word, because it's really been built and nurtured by nurses.
And one aspect of that, and I think speaking to the growth of Daisy, is that your organization recently did or conducted their own study on the impact of gratitude and recognition. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and we really, well, there's a wide body of evidence on the impact of recognition on healthy work environments, on nurse engagement and compassion fatigue, compassion satisfaction. We have a lot of data that both Daisy and many, many others have created around the impact of meaningful recognition. But the piece of it that we saw as an opportunity is we wanted to understand, what does it mean to patients and families and people who actually write the nominations to be able to express their gratitude by writing a Daisy Award nomination. So in 2019, we did a small study up at Beaumont Health, what was then called Beaumont Health in Michigan, led by their chief nurse executive, Dr. Susan Grant. And we interviewed people who'd written nominations and learned so much from that study about the relationship between the person who wrote the nomination and the writing the nomination, it's healing power for them. Their ability to do something for the nurse who had given them so much, something that this patient or family member could give back, created a real synergy and a better balance for them. And thirdly, that it created a relationship to the organization that allowed this person who wrote the nomination to say thank you this way. So we were so excited about that study. And then, of course, the world stopped with the pandemic. But we're now in the process of rolling that out into a much larger sample to learn more about what it means to patients and families to write nominations and say thank you to nurses.
Over the course of your 25 years, I have to believe that learnings, every day, every month, every year, you've learned more and more, made improvements and enhancements. Can you talk a little bit about, some of those really big evolutions and changes and program enhancements that have come about from maybe the inception of Daisy to as we sit here now, 25 years later?
Absolutely. Boy, we've learned so much, and we're so grateful to all the nurses and nurse leaders who have taken us by the hand and taught us so much about the nursing profession. For one thing, over the years, it became evident that nurses work in a wide variety of settings, not just in acute care hospitals. And we wanted to be able to say thank you to nurses wherever nurses practice, wherever they are in their careers. So as a result, the Daisy Award is now honoring nurses in a wide array of organizations and nurse employers, whether it's in military bases or prisons or surgery centers or other kinds of ambulatory centers, and in staffing agencies like yours. So, yes, Daisy is now honoring nurses wherever they practice, wherever they are in their careers, and that came out of our learning from nurses. We also came to understand the importance of honoring nurses in a variety of roles. So, for example, many years ago, Mark and I were in Vietnam visiting the hospitals that had our program there, and we were with a group of American nurse educators. And one of them was a nurse manager who looked at me with kind of big eyes and said, I love what Daisy does for my nurses in my unit, but I'll never be a Daisy. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, I don't have direct hands-on care with patients. I'm there, making sure the environment happens where nurses can provide the great care you honor. Well, Mark and I looked at each other and said, well, we can fix that. And we came home and we created the Daisy Nurse Leader Award, right? Which is now pervasive throughout our very broad network of organizations that have our program around the world. We started a program to honor nursing faculty years ago because a member of our board at the time was the dean of nursing. She said to us, somebody had to teach those nurses who took care of your Patrick. And that was a huge epiphany for Mark and me. So we created a Daisy Faculty Award and started working with and partnering with schools of nursing to honor not only faculty, but also nursing students. But again, evolution became evident that we needed a way to honor nurses who are, in fact, educating, but maybe not in an academic setting. They may be in a health system, educators of all kinds, preceptors. So we revolved the Faculty Award to become the Daisy Award for Nurse Educators, and now are honoring educators around the world wherever they are serving. And that's made a huge difference to our ability to get staff members, nurses, to be able to express their gratitude to the educators that have helped them improve their practice and given them the confidence that they need. Another learning was, and something we certainly saw when we were in the hospital with Patrick, was around the teamwork that happens in healthcare settings. And it was a nurse leader in Pennsylvania at Jefferson Hospital that called me one day and said, I'm getting all these great nominations for teams of nurses. And by the way, there are other people on these teams and the patients are telling me these great stories. Could we create a team award? Well, yeah, what a great idea. I wish I thought of it. So we now have a team award. So those are some of the ways that Daisy has evolved.
I mean, I love the expansion because, to your point, when this first started, you thought it would kind of be a small thing and then you kind of get back to your quote unquote regular life. And it just sounds like that over, in these 25 years, this has expanded to, what maybe started as a single daisy. It's now like a field of daisies, of people who are adjacent to the nurse that has a direct impact, or the direct contact with the patient, to all the people who have the direct impact on the patient, right? These teams, the teachers, the managers, full cycle, of what the nursing ecosystem, if you will. As you were designing those expansions, how did you go about kind of figuring out benefits? How did you work on that? Has that been also something that kind of has evolved over time, and the award itself?
Well, we wanted a way to give our honorees, whatever aspect of the Daisy Award they were receiving, some ways to encourage their professional development. And we stay focused on the area of education, professional development, wellness, well being. So we've developed a whole series of benefits that all of our honorees are entitled to, by the way, whether they won or received the Daisy Award yesterday or 10 years ago. I always say once you're a Daisy nurse, you are always a Daisy nurse, and you are entitled to everything we have anytime. So the benefits that we provide are things like, reduced cost of certification, reduced tuition at Chamberlain University, which can be taken in any aspect of the educational offerings Chamberlain has. Medical mission grants for nurses who want to take their incredible practice and compassion around the world to underserved populations. We can support their going on missions. We have a conference scholarship program we do. So there's a whole array of benefits that are offered to our partners and their DAISY honorees. We feel very strongly that we want nurses to feel the love in a sustained way and be able to take advantage of them.
So what I want to do now is I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how to nominate nurses, or again, the candidates outside of the direct nursing field for the Daisy Award, and also talk a little bit more about some new initiatives, things that are coming up for Daisy. Stay tuned.
No words can explain how thankful I am for giving me this opportunity na makapagtrabaho sa United States, kasi this changed my whole life. I promised to myself din when I was studying na I was born poor, but I will never die poor. This is not just for me, but also for the people who supported me, which is my family. This sacrifice is for them.
Welcome back to Healthcare Heartbeat, a podcast produced by Avant Healthcare Professionals. I am here with Bonnie Barnes, co-founder of the Daisy Foundation. So, Bonnie, I know of a great nurse. I was just in the hospital and I got amazing care. Or, my loved one was in the hospital and just the care they got from this nurse was amazing. Or I know of a nurse leader, teacher. How do I go about nominating them?
It's really very easy. On our website, on the homepage, there is a Say Thank You to Your Nurse banner. You click on that, it takes you to a search engine where you'll find your organization, assuming they are among the almost 7,000 organizations that partner with us, and you'll find a nomination form. That nomination form goes directly to the organization where your nurse works, and it is collected by a DAISY coordinator at each of our partner organizations, who then goes through a process with all the nominations they receive to blind the nomination and take your story, as well as all the other stories and gratitude they receive, and put it into a very structured process to choose an honoree throughout the year.
Very streamlined, super simple. You can do it on your phone. So, yeah, I think it's something that is. And am I mistaken? Also, I feel like I have been at participating hospitals, and are there paper forms too? I'm sure that's less than ideal method, but is that something an option?
Oh, definitely. In fact, that's where we started with, and we still have in probably every organization we partner with. There are boxes on all of the units. There are places that you can find a paper nomination or a QR code to get you to an electronic nomination. And I think probably in the old days, it used to be all paper, and we had a hard time getting electronic nominations to that.
Uh,
But now, and this is certainly through the pandemic, when all the boxes came down and nobody wanted to touch anything, the electronic nominations have taken on a life of their own. So we support that with the opportunity to nominate through our website, but you can find nomination forms in any form throughout all of our organizations.
Yeah, and I also want to mention obviously, you're seeing it here on screen. This is the QR code. If you are watching this and are aware, we're putting the QR code up on the screen. Feel free to grab a picture of that or grab that with your camera. It takes you right to Daisy's website so you can nominate someone. So we're even going to make it easy for you if you have a nurse in mind to nominate. So someone submits a nomination. What happens after that?
Well, there's a committee in each of our organizations, generally comprised of nurses, but there could be others on the committee that participate. Again, the nominations, because we feel so strongly about the integrity of this selection process, the nominations are blinded and then given to this committee. They usually have a set of criteria they've developed ahead of time when they first start the program that they evaluate each nomination against. They may score them in a matrix on a Likert scale, or they may see which is the story that moves them the most, however each organization chooses to do it. And then they choose a nominee to be the Daisy Award honoree of that time period. It could be monthly, it could be quarterly, it could be twice a month. It varies by organization depending on how many nurses they have on staff. So there's a very structured process. And once they've selected the honoree, they, of course, number one, want to make sure this is a nurse in good standing, so they clear it with their manager. And then they schedule a surprise presentation to the nurse who's being honored. And hopefully the entire committee, the C-suite all come, and the chief nursing officer, of course, has got a major role. And they go to the unit and they surprise the honoree with a very special presentation and celebration of their work.
Yeah, I can speak for Avant Healthcare Professionals for our handful of Daisy Award winners. We have for our corporate nurses and our teachers. We have actually surprised them at our company town hall event, so they don't know it's coming. We surprise them; their families there. It's very very moving, and it's it's incredibly meaningful for them and for all of us at our organization. And I think that certainly rings true for all the hospitals and healthcare facilities that when they do this and kind of do that award ceremony, there's a lot of tears. Have the tissues ready. It could be a teary event, but it's all happy tears, which is pretty amazing. Um, on that note, and we could probably fill a whole episode with these, but maybe you could pick out one or two. But do you have a memorable nomination story?
Oh, there are so many. This is like asking me to choose among my children. Come on. There's
Yeah,
been
right.
3 million nominations written so far that we know of.
Wow.
While about 270,000 nurses have received the Daisy Award internationally, it's very hard to choose just one. But I'll tell you a story that Mark and I refer to very often because even though this happened a long time ago, it had a huge impact on us personally, and we felt it's part of what drove us to to take Daisy farther than we ever imagined it could go. There was a man in the hospital, an older gentleman who had had it. He'd had multiple surgeries. He just didn't care anymore. And then a nurse came into his life and she talked to him. She got him to think about his family. She got him to laugh at her jokes. She got him to think about his future in a way he had not been thinking about it. And in his Daisy Award nomination, he said, "This nurse gave me the will to live." That was such a powerful, powerful comment.
Whew.
When we heard that, we happened to be at the celebration. And by the way, a very important addition that we've learned over the years is inviting the person who wrote the nomination to come to the celebration is an incredibly special aspect where the nurse and patient get to reconnect in a very, very profound way. When he read his nomination and he said that, and he looked up at this nurse who had big tears in her eyes and he had big tears in his eyes, well, Mark and I were just blown away by that moment between them. She gave me the will to live. What more can you say? That's a special one.
I mean, yeah, that's powerful stuff. And I think it speaks to truly the impact, I mean, of the nurses.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's easy, we mentioned before when it comes to the companies or the hospitals, it's easy to get caught up on the what's bad, what can we improve. I think it's a very easy thing for nurses themselves to get caught up on, right? They're dealing with literally life and death situations at times. And I think it's easy to be affected by the weight of that and forget about the positive nature of it. Those stories, just like that. This person gave me the will to live. I mean, that's
The other thing
whew,
that that
got the
nurses
chills.
nurses don't they take this work for granted. So when this
Mm,
gentleman said to his nurse, "You gave me the will to live," she was just like every other Daisy honoree we've ever met. She said to him, I didn't do anything special. I was just doing my job." And that is a nursing mantra that we've worked very hard to take
it
out
is.
of the nursing vocabulary for all these years, because don't deny us as patients and families the chance to tell you the incredible difference you've made for us. Don't deny that to us.
Yeah.
We may take it for granted, but boy, you made
Yeah.
this, and we need you to take that in.
Take a moment,
Yep.
in it and I think um, it's not just to accept the praise, but it's almost like truly take a moment to recognize how impactful your what you do is. You know, I think the award ceremony is just as much, certainly for the recipient, to again just take that moment to bask, if you will, in that responsibility and the power, for that matter, that they have as nurses in someone's life. It is huge. Um, so Bonnie, specific to Avant Healthcare Professionals, we have international nurses that some oftentimes never ever expect to be recognized, and they become very overwhelmed when colleagues of theirs, peers who maybe they haven't known for a very long time, recognize them with such just glowing positive words. How does that make you feel?
Oh boy, what a gift to give these nurses that kind of feedback and sense of inclusion and belonging into the organizations that they work for when they've come from so far away and they're serving our healthcare needs. I think it's how does that make me feel? Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of the fact that Daisy is giving those nurses, those internationally educated and international nurses, an opportunity to feel the love and respect of their colleagues. It's incredibly powerful. Thank you for telling me that. I'm really, really thrilled to hear it.
25 years, 3 million submissions later. Oh my God, that's unbelievable. But not really. Yeah, I mean, there are so many amazing, amazing nurses out there. You said 270,000 recipients. Um, but you're not done. You're not resting on your laurels. You're working on new things. You're working on expansions. Talk to us. What's coming up? What's coming down the pipe for Daisy Foundation?
Well, we've got a great strong focus now on bringing DAISY recognition internationally. DAISY's currently honoring nurses in 41 countries, including the US. Again, nothing that was ever in our early on vision for this program. 41 countries where nurses and their organizations are appreciating the importance and value of providing this feedback to the nurses from patients and families and colleagues, describing exactly what nurses have done. So we continue to drive our international growth and help to change the culture of organizations to really a culture of gratitude, of a culture of recognition that makes the environment a much more positive place for nurses to work. So the international focus is a big deal. We are about to announce our representative to Europe and the United Kingdom, who is a recently retired chief nurse in the UK, who's an amazing force. I can't wait to get that announcement out. But that's a very special part of our work that's going to be going forward. We're currently working in South America, throughout Asia, Southeast Asia, and certainly in Europe and the UK. So lots to happen in terms of our international growth. Secondly, we know the best of our DAISY Award programs require some work on the part of the organization that has the program. And so we know that it takes a team, it takes a committee, it takes dedicated DAISY coordinators, and we're working to provide to all of our partner organizations an understanding of why they need to invest in a resource to elevate meaningful recognition for nurses. Really looking at, if you will, the ROI of recognition. So the study that I mentioned earlier that we did among nominators to understand why it was important to them to write a nomination, we're going to rolling that out will give us more to talk to the C-suite about why they need to make sure that recognition is pervasive in their organizations. We also see the importance of involving nominators in the process. Everyone who takes the time to pour their hearts out with gratitude to their nurse wants to know what happened to their nomination. But that takes some time on the part of the DAISY coordinators or the committee in the organization. So we need to make sure those resources are available. And the more data we can give to the C-suite to understand that, the better off we will all be. And so we want to make sure that every organization has the right resource behind their recognition program. So that's kind of a second strong focus for us. A third thing we're working on is really a connection to the public. We call it change the narrative. After the pandemic, it's so important that our society view nurses for the incredible, vital, and unique role they play in our lives. We've got to participate in elevating the vision of what nurses mean to all of us. So we're working on a public effort to do that. It's one of the reasons that we now accept DAISY Award nominations on our website. During the pandemic, we had over $1 million worth of outdoor billboard advertising donated to DAISY, encouraging the public to say thank you to nurses. And we continue to find ways to get the public engaged. And that whole concept of changing the narrative is something we're working on with all the nursing organizations around the United States. So those are some of the things that are really important focuses for us at this point. And we continue to hone our own expertise and how we guide our organizations and partners in developing a really meaningful recognition program. So we've got this amazing team. There are now 35 people who work at the DAISY Foundation whose commitment to recognizing nurses and saying thank you is as strong as mine. And so we're extremely proud of the DAISY Award team and family, and continuing to hone their expertise and giving them all the resources they need to provide everything that our partner organizations need to be extraordinary recognizers. So that's some of what we're working on.
I think I speak for countless nurses, uh, equally countless healthcare facilities when I say um, we are so incredibly grateful to you, your husband, and the Daisy Foundation, but specifically you and your husband, that you didn't stop after 5 or 10 hospitals, right? This has been it's out of a truly dark and difficult moment. So much light has been created from this, from Patrick's story, and Yeah, it's just an amazing thing for Avant Healthcare Professionals to be to collaborate with you, and I have to believe it's a shared sentiment among, again, countless nurses, hospitals, healthcare facilities. It's amazing. Daisy Foundation is truly an amazing organization. So if someone wants to learn more about the Daisy Foundation, maybe even get involved, what have you, where can they go? Where would you like them to go to get more information and learn more?
Two places. First of all, our website, daisyfoundation.org, is, I'm so proud of it and of our team that's built it. It's a beautiful creation of all the things that are going on at the Daisy Foundation, and a great place and resource. It is also the place where all of our healthcare organization partners go for a robust resource center of all the materials that we've created to bring the Daisy Award to life in every kind of organization around the world. So daisyfoundation.org is the kind of number one place. But secondly, and this is, thank you for asking, we have just released our 25th anniversary edition of the book that Mark and I wrote 5 years ago. It's called Shining the Light on All the Right, Celebrating the Art of Nursing Around the World. And the 25th anniversary edition adds, well, we wrote it initially for our 20th anniversary, but of course there was a lot to say over the last 5 years, and we felt it was time to add some thinking and material and talk about what the pandemic had meant for Daisy and nursing, and where we have evolved over the last 5 years. So we've added several new chapters. We've added new stories of Daisy honorees that we're so proud to share through the book. We've going to have an ebook, will be up on Amazon any day now. And Mark and I are recording the audio version of the book, and that should be up come November 1st. So I got to tell you, that's been a great experience, because it's our way to tell the story of how we went from Patrick's bedside to 25 years later with going on 7,000 healthcare facility partners honoring nurses around the world. So it's been a lot of fun to be able to record this. But I'll tell you, it's a lot harder than it looks to record an audiobook.
Yeah, I know. When I listen to them, I just think about the person in the booth reading the book and how many outtakes and things there must be. So, Bonnie, I just want to thank you once again for joining Healthcare Heartbeat, for everything that you and the Daisy Foundation do. And I look forward to checking in with you down the road for more amazing Daisy updates.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share our story and our passion and gratitude for nurses. And, we always say Mark and I get so much more out of this work than we put into it, because nurses have just come into our lives in such a profound and powerful way. And we really thank you for the opportunity to, number one, celebrate your healthcare professionals at Avant with us, and secondly, to share our story today.
Thanks for listening. This has been Healthcare Heartbeat by Avant Healthcare Professionals, the leader in international healthcare staffing and recruitment, where we change the lives of healthcare professionals every day. To learn more about how our healthcare professionals can help your facility, visit AvantHealthcare.com and be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you get your podcasts.